Okay, hey everyone. We're here live in BRCvr. My name's Ryan, and this is Alex. We're actually here in Camp Walter, we're actually within Camp Walter. We're inside of something called Mona Lisa, which is one of our art cars. Mona Lisa is based on a drawing that Leonardo da Vinci did of a siege engine, he called it. And a few years ago, there was a theme for Burning Man called Da Vinci's Workshop. And around that theme, we decided to build Mona Lisa, which is what you see, what we're sort of inside of. And actually, specifically what we're inside of is this ring of truss here. It's sort of this silver thing you see around us. And what that was for was, well, actually, for years and years, Camp Walter has collaborated with some aerospace engineers at the University of Purdue. They're rocket scientists, basically. And for a graduate class there at their school, they would build fire effects for us. Or we would collaborate with them on some sort of fire effects project. And the one that they built for us on this, actually two things that they built for us on this, were some pulse jet rockets and a bunch of flamethrowers, or we call them fire effects, but flamethrowers. And this ring here, this piece of metal that Alex and I are kind of standing inside of, was a track that two pulse jet rockets would sit on the outside of Mona Lisa and spin around.
And what's opposite direction, so the thing would just spin and the loudest whistle you can possibly imagine. And just go way beyond that.
So it turns out pulse jets are terrible at being rockets, and they're really, really good at being or at converting propane or some other fuel. We used propane into noise, and so they're actually this really kind of beautiful. There's a harmony that's made inside of this this geometry of a pipe, basically. And if you do the geometry of the pipe just right, and you fill it up with fuel, and you start it on fire, it'll create this sort of self-sustaining oscillation inside of this geometry. And it makes a little bit of thrust and a whole ton of noise. And we had two of them here, and they spun this thing around. And then on the outside of it, we had a bunch of fire effects, again, sort of colloquially known as flamethrowers, but fire effects. So here, we'll start going down here. Now, Mona Lisa is really, really fun because on the outside, she's actually covered in spikes. And that's, well, lots of them are spikes. The one nearer to the ground are not quite so pokey, but to give her kind of a look that we hope Da Vinci would have thought was really, really cool.
Well, and it's also part of the drive or underlying design of Camp Walter's. It should feel a little dangerous. Like you should
welcoming.
You should feel like there's steel everywhere, and you should feel like there's guy wires that you should be paying attention to.
But also welcoming and loving, and Mona Lisa, at the same time. So actually, the first couple years that she was out there, and actually, in fact, every year that she was out there, the inside where Alex and I started, we ran a speakeasy. So this door here that's open, when it's closed, you can't see that it's a door, and so it would be this like secret door. If you could find it and figure out why there were all these people inside, sort of laughing and having fun. You could come inside, and we had a speakeasy in there, which was really, really fun. Speakeasies have actually sort of just become a part of our big part of our camp at this point. So, am I missing anything about Mona?
Sticking up are also those are the flamethrowers.
Yeah.
Around the top.
Yep.
So this thing is spinning up isopropyl jets and igniting them.
This one shoots liquid propane, actually, which is very unique.
Oh, this is
most of the fire effects at Burning Man, almost all of them, shoot gaseous propane. There's a couple, maybe one or two, that shoots liquid alcohol. And then I think we are actually the only people that are allowed to shoot liquid propane, which is very cool and kind of unique, actually. So, and that all came from those awesome students at Purdue that helped us on this. So, cool. Do you want to head down to Walter?
Yeah, let's head down.
All right, cool.
So these giant trusses that you see, everything is kind of not exactly to scale. Everything is a little larger than it actually is in real life. But these trusses, there's actually one of these called the altar I have not seen it on fly, so
I actually think you nailed the scale, Alex. These might actually be bigger in real life than they are here. They're enormous in real life. Like, I can crawl inside of them, and I'm a big guy. Yeah.
So I'm kind of heading out to Walter because he's kind of where everything started.
Starts.
2009 was his first year on Playa.
Yep.
And it's actually a Walter crash response vehicle, like a giant fire truck for that was in service at Luke Air Force Base here in Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. For years, starting not good at the dates, but you know, he put in his time putting out fires, and
so we say
up on Jerome for a long time. There's a mountain up high.
one of the cool things. Well, there's a couple cool things. Well, one very cool thing I'll say about Walter is that we sort of say Walter had only one purpose. He only knew how to do one thing in the whole world, which was to save people. And so Walter, like Alex was saying, started his life as an airport crash truck. It was Walter's job, if an airplane crashed at a military base, to drive right up into the fire. He would have had a big fire cannon on his roof at the time, and he would have helped try to save people. And that's the only thing he knows how to do, is just save people from fires. And so the original vehicle that Walter was built on, a Walter crash truck, that's where the name comes from, had these super thick panels of glass on the front, giant tires, which are actually the same tires that are on him now. And he just wanted to save people, and we think that's really beautiful. And like Alex was saying, the other thing that Walter, the Camp Walter is all about is second chances. And so Walter, the fire truck, was up in Jerome, basically not abandoned, but certainly not putting out fires anymore. And our camp founder, Kirk saw Walter up there and said, I want to make Walter into a giant Volkswagen bus. And along with a team of people, that's exactly what he did. So now we have Walter, and Walter is kind of our he's our close friend. He's our close friend. We love Walter a lot.
So if there's one distinguishing characteristic in his personality, Walter loves to share.
For sure.
Kind of the core of our Phoenix scene. You know, just bring enough of something that you can share, and we'll always have enough.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of the vehicles happen too. It's just like, hey, I'm an electrician. Hey, I'm just like, and
a lighting. Yeah. And the big thing, Walter, like at Burning Man, is like anyone can get on Walter anytime. If you see Walter, like get on Walter and go for a ride with us. And we're super welcoming. We love having people come and go for rides with us. So when you see us out on Playa, if you wave and ask for a ride, it's an almost certainty that you'll get one, unless there's some very specific technical reason that you can't, like, I don't know, we're out of fuel and we're trying to make it to the fuel depot, or I don't know. I can't even imagine a reason why someone wouldn't be getting a ride. So anyway, do you want to say anything else about Walter, Alex? Did I forget anything?
Yeah, you can check him out at walterthebus.org. There's a much more detailed story of kind of the camp and the vehicle and
Genesis.
The next vehicle, if you can follow it this way, this is Big Red. It's the world's largest Baja beetle.
Yep.
Baja bug. And again, this is on a Walter tractor crash response vehicle.
Yep.
Base. And he was made mostly for in Iowa.
Yeah, by a high school student.
Right.
So, yep. Did our camera guy, is he still here? Should we wait for him?
Yes. Yeah.
He's good? Cool. So, Big Red. Do you want to start about Big Red, Alex? Or you kind of did.
Yeah, I mean, we can...
Yeah, so I can go a little bit. So Big Red, actually, so what's kind of perfect here is that if you look, there is a fire engine here in camp. It's in front of Calliope, which is the thing that's making all this noise. And it's got those two big horns on it. It's the red fire truck kind of over there.
Heathen.
That's Heathen, yep. So, but Heathen is actually an almost unmodified version of the vehicle that Walter was built on. and that Big Red was built on. So there's really kind of 3 of those fire trucks in camp. There's Heathen,
And
there's
Stretchin'.
Walter, which is, Stretchin' was a Humvee. So there's Heathen, there's Walter, which was also built on the same sort of chassis, and then there's Big Red, which was kind of a really heavily modified version. Big Red is Heathen, but the chassis, it's harder to see this in VR, but the chassis has been shortened substantially. And Big Red was built almost entirely by a high school student in Iowa, who was, I believe, a state champion welder. And it's hard to see in VR, but in sort of reality, real reality, I don't know what we would call it other than virtual reality, but Big Red is made up of all these strips of metal, and what's really cool is that the person that made Big Red, Curtis, he cut them all by hand with an angle grinder, which is just like so freaking cool to me. When you see Big Red, you'd think like, oh, that must be some CNC machine, or there was a computer model involved somewhere or something, but nope, he did it all by hand with angle grinders, which is so awesome. So Big Red, like Alex said, is the world's largest, as far as we know, Baja Beetle. Also has the world's largest air-cooled diesel engine in the back, which is really, really cool. The diesel engine was also on a second chance. I think it was doing its life servicing oil fields or something like that. But anyway, Big Red has a big sound system on him. We pack tons and tons and tons of people in Big Red, give people rides all over the playa. In fact, my favorite thing to do with Big Red, my wife and I sort of make it a point to do this every year at Burning Man, is we take a driving shift on Big Red, and then we drive way out into the suburbs at Burning Man, and we try to find people who look like they're, kind of wanting to go out into the playa, but it's too far, and they're getting kind of cold, and it's getting kind of late, and we tell them, we're going to be your chauffeur for the night, so hop in Big Red, and we're going to take you all over playa. Where do you want to go? And we give them a ride, and we usually end up at the trash fence for sunrise. But anyway, my point is, again, like Walter, everybody's welcome in Big Red, and we really, really just love giving people rides, especially when they don't expect it. That's the most fun, is like, one of my favorite stories was, I think we were driving maybe to get fuel, or we were doing some maintenance task or something, and we saw someone on a bike way out in the suburbs, and we're like, where are you going? And they're like, oh man, I got to go to the airport, or I got to get somewhere that's really far away. And we said like, well, what are you doing riding your bike? Throw it in Big Red and we'll give you a ride wherever you're going. And that's what we did for the afternoon. So that's really, really fun. Anyway, that's kind of Big Red. Am I missing anything, Alex? Sorry if I'm I love talking about this stuff, so I'll do it all night long. Yeah, so cool. Do you want to head over to Stretchin' then? And Peace Train?
Yeah, let's head to Peace Train.
Cool. Cool. So there's actually 4 art cars here. One of them is called Stretchin', and Stretchin' is there's 2 vehicles, I guess we have 3. Now, you know what? Forget about that. There's too many now. But Stretchin' is not built on a fire engine, which is kind of unique, I guess, for some of our cars. But Stretchin' is actually built on a military Humvee chassis. And what's kind of cool is that a Volkswagen Thing, or a Volkswagen Kumbelsitzwagen, was kind of the German equivalent to a Jeep. It was a military vehicle, World War II era, I think, and shortly after. And we built a giant one on a Humvee. Normally they're really, really small, or much smaller than the one that we have. So we've kind of, in our theme, built a giant one. And there's actually a theme here too, and I think Stretchin' sort of best exemplifies it, which is like a Humvee and Kumbelsitzwagen are both kind of machines of war. And what we've done, and this again goes to sort of our camp's ethos a little bit, is we've taken these machines which were built for sometimes an awful purpose, and we've repurposed them into something that's, all about love and acceptance and making people feel safe, making people feel important and tall and everything good. So actually that theme is continued from Stretchen, which is the Kummelsitzwagen, to all three of these trailers behind him were World War II era radio trailers. And each of them in sort of Black Rock City have a little tiny, they're not all bars, but they're like little interesting sitting areas that you wouldn't know you were inside of a World War II era radio trailer, that's for sure. But really, really decked out. Christina is a member of our camp who is really instrumental in pretty much everything we do, but I know she really put a lot of work into doing the interiors of those cars. So, Alex, are the interiors modeled? Should we go look at them, or are they closed up? Yeah, let's check it out.
I'll show you my works and all, because I had some issues. But this was beautifully modeled by Alice Donnelly, and then in the exports, I really had issues. She made this really beautiful place. Like, you can get these.
Can we go in? We can go in. Yeah. This is so cool, Alex.
So the back wall is like copper. These are all sheets of copper. Yeah. And on this table, there'd be little stamps, so you could, with a little hammer, like typesetting, and you could just leave little messages, just whatever.
Yeah, so at Black Rock City or anywhere where Constraint goes, you'll just hear from the inside of the car just hammering, as people are sort of hammering their messages, usually of some sort of affirmation or something like that, into the walls of this car Constraint, which I think is really, really cool. It's a fun noise, at least it's like a cacophony of hammers and stamps and banging as they're stamping things into the copper walls back here. Copper or brass? I think they're copper. Like I said, Christina was kind of, this is kind of her thing. So, do you want to go over to Calliope, Alex?
Yeah, let's step off to the next.
Cool.
So, 2013 is when the charge was, hey, how do we make a really loud sound car?
Well, so one last thing before we talk about Calliope, sorry, Alex, that I just have to say is that Peace Train was an extreme challenge to get okayed to drive at Burning Man. It turns out that trailers are a really big challenge to drive around on Playa. The DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, is awesome, and they totally helped us figure out how to do it safely. But usually, if you see Peace Train in camp, Peace Train ends up being usually stationary because trailers are a bit of a challenge, it turns out. So, but thank you to the DMV for helping us get that working when we did.
So Calliope is being hauled by Ethan, as Ryan explained before. On top of Ethan, it's the cylinder that is the CVRG.
Yeah.
Like a cylindrical
combustible vortex ring generator.
There you go. Basically, a giant donut of fire comes out of this, and again, it was Purdue.
Another Purdue
combustion
thing.
And propulsion.
Yep. So Heathen, Heathen is one of my favorites because back in the normal non-virtual world, I work a lot on the fire team. So Heathen is a place I spend a lot of time. But Heathen is, like I said, probably the most visibly unmodified vehicle that we have. But Heathen has a lot of really cool surprises. So Alex was saying, I'm looking around for the camera. I hope I'm looking at the right spot. But there's someone standing inside of it, actually, which is very cool. But there's a big silo-looking thing on the roof. And it's, you said it, Alex, it's CVRG. It's a combustible vortex ring generator. And the way it works is, if you've ever learned how to blow a smoke ring, where you sort of have to purse your lips a little bit and then blow smoke out of your mouth, and it makes this interesting sort of shearing action on the smoke as it's coming out. You get a ring. Well, these really cool students at Purdue, they're not students anymore, but some of them are actually teachers there now, which is really cool, or researchers. But they said, well, what if we did that with propane? And so we dump a ton of liquid propane into this silo here. I think it's between 20 and 30 pounds of liquid propane goes into the silo, which is like a lot of propane. There's a cylinder at the bottom, or a piston at the bottom, that forces it all out through the top, through a hole that's a little bit about half the diameter of the main silo, so kind of like pursing your lip for a smoke ring. That creates that shearing effect on the propane as it comes out, which is gaseous at this point when it comes out. And then there's some spark plugs that sort of sit about 6 feet above the orifice, and it lights this big giant ring of propane on fire. So when you hear Ethan, it's kind of a fun, like, you'll hear, I'm not going to try and make the sound effects, but there's a sound effect of hearing this thing fill up, and then just kind of this whomp, and this giant ring of fire shoots up into the air. It's really cool. The other surprise that Ethan has is there's a mini version of that silo that usually sits on right kind of on the top of his head, and that is Big Flame, which is a giant flamethrower. That's a more traditional style, like gaseous propane flamethrower, but it just makes a huge flame off the front, and then this CVRG makes a huge flame off the back. Now, the thing, Alex, that's not on here, that was new last year, 2 years ago maybe, was another effect that actually replaced this that's even bigger. That's called BFF, which is a Big Friendly Flame. Again, this was a project from these rocket scientists at Purdue, and it's, as far as we know, the biggest fire effect at Burning Man. So it's liquid propane, which is very, very unique. I should say the reason why liquid propane is so unique and why we think it's so cool is that if you think about compressing a gas down into a liquid, you have just much more fuel, per unit of volume than you would. You have much more fuel per unit of volume as a liquid than you do as a gas. So if you're working with liquid, you're basically just working with way more fuel. Anyway, it shoots this fire, I think it's like 50 meters up into the air. It's humongous. And we use nitrogen to sort of pressurize all this liquid propane. There's a flamethrower that goes off at the beginning, which sometimes people think is the main effect, but it's really just the world's biggest pilot light. And then this huge amount of propane just shoots up into the sky. It's this giant thing. BFF. It's kind of a very unique and very special fire effect that those people built. So, am I missing anything, Alex?
No, that was great.
Sorry, again, I'll talk about this stuff all night, so.
Yeah.
I love it.
And this is Calliope, and this is a 70,000 watt sound car.
Yep.
It took, I do not know how many hundreds of people, really, just, kind of really working very hard. And, I don't know, it's been deployed all over the place, but it's really most at home at Burning Man.
Yep. So Calliope, do you mind? So like I was saying, everything in Walter, or many things in Walter are about second chances. So Calliope started her life as a semi-trailer from the 1970s and was then converted into what you see in front of you right now. So when the project started, there was this so I'm not a sound person, and I bug the sound people and ask them to explain this to me a lot. But when Calliope started, she was some unique system of subwoofers where, like, some of them are shooting forward and some of them are shooting backwards.
Well, what we had was a subwoofer. It was like 10, 12 PK sound subwoofer.
Huge, yeah.
Packed on the back.
Yep.
And it was clear. Alex Funk came to check it out. Alex Mo swung through Phoenix to see, hey, how are we doing? And it looked like when we did cross the bridge across to Vegas, it's a really high up bridge, and all of a sudden this crazy wind every time you cross up there. Once you break the mountain, this huge wind comes, and it was just like, this whole trailer is going to go. We can't get more of the center of gravity lower. So that was like changing the whole setup of how the speakers were going to go in. And another part of the problem was getting, a certain amount of loudness. And Alex figured out that, okay, let's turn some of the speakers backwards to get this cardioid, heart-shaped flow of air for the subwoofers. And it is devastating.
Well, so what was really cool, I don't know if it's that configuration anymore, but because like I was saying, my job lots of times is to work on fire effects, and so I'm oftentimes standing behind Calliope, and there's, some of the events that we do will have 12 giant 30-foot flamethrowers that shoot isopropyl alcohol up in the sky, sort of making a fan behind Calliope. And one of my jobs is to stand behind her and make sure that all of that, is running, and set that up and kind of run the flame effects. But because of this unique setup of subwoofers, it made what we called the warp core right in the back, which was this like weird spot right in the center behind Calliope where all these waves would like converge with each other, and it just made this insane, like, chaotic space that you would stand in. Incidentally, that was like exactly
your rib cage and just
it was really like you were just standing in a chaotic, river rapid of sound or something. I don't know, it was crazy. Incidentally, that's always where we wanted to stand for fire effects.
Right.
But, so Alex was saying it's like 70,000 watts of sound. The DJ is, of course, up on the top, and then there's 12, moving heads up on the top. There's a laser that comes out of the, there's a door there in the center, and there's a little hole at the top. That's usually where the laser comes out. It was a RGB laser, which when we had it to begin with was a very unique thing to have, which was really, really cool. These horns that you see, I'm sure you can't see me pointing, but they look like loudspeakers from a racetrack or something, kind of in the middle of her front.
Yeah.
And that's because that's exactly what they are. They were from the 1940s or 50s, and they were loudspeakers from a racetrack. The horns. Now behind them obviously is a modern
the electronics are modern, but the physics hasn't changed.
Exactly. So they're just these really cool, like, decorative horns. I'm sure I apologize if I'm getting the terminology wrong here for the sound people. Andy,
and it's
I
not
apologize if
here,
I got
but
it wrong.
there's stairs that go up the whole backside of Calliope.
Yeah.
And there is no VIP space in Camp Walter. It's just like, you can go up there too. Be cool. But
that's like our main thing.
We have a capacity, but it's, I love that everyone gets to go hang out with the DJ and just like, what are we co-creating together? Where are we the moment
that's like
happening right now?
A major core philosophical part of our camp is like everyone is included. Like, there's no VIP sections. Crawl on top of it. Go inside of it. Like, you're welcome. Come inside. We want you to feel tall and empowered and important, and like we want you to feel like you're the most important person, because you are. So go up on top of Calliope and dance up there, or go up in Walter and dance up there, and do it all. So that's a big important thing. And then I don't know if you kind of mentioned it, Alex, but our camp also has a nonprofit in Scottsdale, Arizona, called the Walter Hive, which in some senses is an extension of that philosophy. It's this like making people feel empowered and important, and make them feel like they're 100 feet tall. And we have a makerspace. Actually, the place where pretty much all these vehicles were built, we then turned into a nonprofit where we bring little, usually kids in and teach them how to fabricate stuff like this. So we teach them how to weld, and we teach them how to do woodworking, and we teach them how to do fine art like painting and sculpture and stuff like that. So anyway, to wrap it up, a big part of our philosophy is we want people to feel tall and we want people to feel included. And that mission has actually carried on now outside of Black Rock City into the default world. So, although it's virtual now, which is kind of funny because of the pandemic, we're doing it all online in the same way that we're doing this online. But a plug. I'm going to do one plug then. Every Monday night, if you go to thewalterhive.org, there's a virtual workshop. Anybody can show up and attend it for free and learn how to do art and hang out with each other and everything like that. So, cool. Anything else, Alex? Am I missing anything? Cool.